Home runs and hearts. One man stealing it all in the world of baseball. Aaron Judge. 61 home runs in the year 61, and 61 years later couldn't have been the more perfect time for Aaron to break the record. Setting the bar slightly higher is no easy feat. It was attempted by some of the most prolific players for decades who trained their hardest for this moment. Let's get into it and see what it took. First up, all eyes on him. Yankee right fielder Roger Maris's home run junior circuit record now finally falls short, even if it's just by one hit, although getting anywhere close to his record at all would have been surprising. The New York Yankees slugger Aaron Judge did have fans speculating about his eventual shot in performance since his 52 hits back in 2017. Then came the week-long tie when Judge locked in around 61 hits back in late September this year. Nailing him onto the radar is the late Maris's equal, and maybe, hopefully, his successor in the future. Before Maris, it was Babe Ruth who set the record with his 60 home runs back in 1927, and it's still regarded as a monumental benchmark made in the history of sports. It was a record that stood for 34 years straight. On October 4th this MLB season, the world held its breath, counting carefully as it watched Aaron swing at one ball after the other without missing much of a beat. When the ball came off Texas Rangers right-handed Jesus Tinoco, a new section of baseball history had already been set in stone, with Aaron Judge as the American League single-season home run champion. Aaron Judge had hit his 62nd home run of the season and set a new precedent for the baseball world. Maris's soul himself must have been nearby. He passed the baton from one Yankee to another in this epic win of the century. If anything, Roger Maris Jr. watched it all unfold before him, and then he sent kind of a cryptic tweet right after, saying we can now celebrate a new clean home run king. Up next, scandals in history. So what's he talking about? Well, there have been plenty of baseball players before Judge who have hit a high number of home runs, but they remain unrecognized in the Hall of Fame. There were reasons. Take a wild guess. It's not uncommon in sports for this to crop up after investigations into suspiciously smooth-sailing performances, and it sends the sports world into a frenzy of debates straight after. Whether the reason for better than best performance is viable, we agree that pushing the limits of human abilities without enhancements has its own shock and appeal. That's right, it was steroids. In 2001, Barry Bonds managed 73 home runs, which put him on top in MLB history, but he's also been at the forefront of one of the largest steroid scandals to ever take place, which made him ineligible to be acknowledged in the Hall of Fame. As of early November, he's been nominated for the Hall of Fame by the 2023 Contemporary Era Committee, but he needs 12 votes before he can pull through. Then there was Mark McGwire with a stunning 70 long balls in 1998, but he finally revealed in 2010 that steroids and human growth hormone were a constant part of his playing career. In the same year, Sammy Sosa whacked 66 baseballs straight into the stands, but he tested positive for steroids as well. Now for the value factor. Coach Reardon has valuable insight to give on the enormity of these feats, and why these efforts becoming tainted by the use of steroids can be very upsetting regardless of how far it takes the athletes. He states that Bond's year was tainted with steroids, and no one was truly safe, and anything achieved had a copycat effect that wore away the fascination of the many home runs the players would hit. To him, Judge was incredible because only 3 players had high numbers of home runs in the season. Compared to when Bonds pulled it off, 11 other players managed to start hitting 40 or more home runs, which drove up suspicions about the possibility of steroids. They bring in a lot of fans, Coach Reardon said about home runs, so it's understandable why sports officials become concerned when they become an easy norm to do. Their entire appeal towards home runs is that it's difficult to do. It requires good aim, an accurate and speedy swing, and a lot of power to send it flying. It's very rare for players to hit consecutive home runs more than twice in a row to begin with, so you can imagine that hitting 40 non-consecutive ones is rare as well. Let's look at the facts and figures. Noting that it's a physically demanding achievement when the player isn't on steroids, Coach Reardon continued to explain that there are many opportunities for exhaustion. MLB seasons are long, with little time for players to rest and recuperate in between games. Compare that to Aaron Judge having to play 55 games straight. The authenticity of his numbers comes from the fact that his home runs were quite infrequent throughout, as opposed to Bonds, who hit much more in a very short amount of time. Looking at the facts, there were plenty of games in a row where Judge didn't hit home runs, the minimum being 5 and the most being 9. On the other hand, Bonds never let more than 3 games pass him by where he didn't hit at least 1 home run. He wasn't always this special though. During his debut in 2016, he was only able to hit 1 home run in the first 13 games he played. It wasn't until the following year did things start picking up after his rookie record of 52 home runs. At the time, he was averaging a home run every 10.42 at-bats, but took it up by a great margin of 14.14 at-bats from 2018 to 2021. In 148 games he played in 2021, he hit 39 home runs, putting him with the likes of Brandon Lowe and Mitch Haniger, who had also achieved the same numbers. What's more, the lucky catchers. There's a reason a home run scarcity is important to the sport. Sending the ball into the stands from across the field's already an unusual occurrence, but the fans that got a hold of them are extremely lucky. Such baseballs are high-value items that rake in millions of dollars when auctioned off, and we can't imagine how much Judge's 62nd home run baseball must be worth. For comparison's sake, Judge's 60th ball that was caught by a fan was exchanged for a clubhouse meet and greet with the athlete himself, 4 autographed baseballs, and a bat with Judge's signature on it. What about the 2 baseballs after? Well, the 61st ball found its way to Judge's mother after a Toronto Blue Jays worker handed it back to the player, but the 62nd one was caught by Corey Humans. It's an important piece of history that the president of Memory Lane, J.P. Cohen, offered $2 million for, but hasn't received a response. Judge believes that the fan has every right to that historic ball. The baseball did a lot more for Judge at the end of the day, landing him a 7-year contract of $213.5 million, which he actually declined in favor of being unrestricted in his sports life. Finally, some other surprising facts you may have missed. Judge is becoming a part of history, and we can't help but notice that his steady growth lines up well with Maris's own rise to fame and success. We haven't yet delved into the full scope of Judge's ability, so here are some things that are worth noting because it makes his mark on history even more fascinating than we believe. Out of the 62, 54.8% of his home runs were fastballs, out of which 11 of them were reaching more or less a stunning 95 miles per hour. He had 154 games in his schedule, but only played 151 of them. We can only wonder what he could have achieved if he'd played all of them. Judge has been accused by critics of taking advantage of the lousy right field of the Yankee Stadium, but it fell on deaf ears. Being right-handed, 15 of his home runs flew off to the left, so there was really no advantage to be taken here. He hit 30 of his home runs at the Yankee Stadium. His shortest home run was a 355-footer. As for his furthest, he hit 3 364-foot home runs. The longest ever home run he had was in July against the Baltimore Orioles in Camden Yards, where the ball dropped at a 465-foot distance away. The parks he played at could have determined the probability of his home runs, which means his record could have either fallen short or been higher depending on where he played and how many matches took place there. Between Babe Ruth, Roger Maris, and Aaron Judge, Judge has the highest WPA of 0.137, while the other two have 0.119 and 0.132 respectively. That's all for today. So what do you think about this making of history? Is it too soon with Bond's nomination on the horizon? Let us know what you think in the comments. On that note, if you liked what you saw, then don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. Until next time.